It was a little bit of a slog, but the payoff was worth it. One of the best books I've ever read is called The Unintended Reformation by a Notre Dame professor named Brad Gregory. The Unintended Reformation is great because the thesis is basically everything that's wrong with the world today is the Protestants' fault, and I appreciated that. To give it better justice and to give our friends in Christ better justice, his point was the Reformers made a lot of decisions. The Reformers changed a lot of things in Western society, and they could not foresee the consequences of their changes. And he tracks the changes that were made at the time of the Reformation and how that it's affected society today. Unintended Reformation. Not to say that Luther intended these things, but the result of his actions are these things. And one of them is the loss of theology as a source of truth. Imagine, we have the Reformation, we have all of these debates theologically, we even have violence and wars around this theology. Western society loses its belief that theology can arrive at truth. Because you have these two sides that are fighting and fighting and fighting, and neither of them seems to be winning. And so there doesn't seem to be a resolution that's possible. It seems to be theology is now a matter of personal opinion. Theology is now something that we choose for ourselves, and the Holy Roman Empire did no favors to us because they said, well, it's up to whatever the prince of the area is. That's the religion of that area. Okay, well, that means that theology is a personal preference. It's not something that is true that can be discovered through study. It's something that's simply chosen by will. Because of that, you quickly have the Enlightenment. Theology is no longer a source of truth. Therefore, what is the only source of truth we have? Well, they begin to look more and more to materialistic science. Which is not to say that materialistic science is not a source of truth. It certainly is. But it became the only source of truth. If theology is a matter of personal opinion, then the only way that we can find truth is through a microscope. And there is no other form of truth that exists. I would say today, we're still very much in that, although there are some cracks in that belief. COVID caused a lot of people to take a more skeptical approach toward the scientific endeavor. And we also see in things like AI and other uses of technology that it's not as unabashedly good as we thought it was going to be. Nevertheless, we still look to materialistic science as the main source of truth. But I would also say, because we're sort of losing even that idea, a lot of us look to a source of truth, or if you'd like, salvation or meaning in politics. We say, okay, theology can't give us any truth. It's not helpful to anybody. Science has sort of run its course. It's done its best. And now, what did we get out of science? We got Facebook, and is that really the pinnacle of all human achievement? And so, okay, maybe now we're looking to politics as the only way that we can have sort of truth or salvation in the world. As Christians, that should make us very sad. We should be very disappointed in this. Because we believe that salvation comes through Jesus Christ. And we believe that truth comes through Jesus Christ. And the fact that people are no longer looking to Christianity, no longer looking to theology for truth and salvation should be very scary to us. Let's review first why we do believe that theology is the source of our salvation, and then we'll get into some other implications. So in Colossians, we have this idea from Paul about the nature of the second person of the Trinity, the nature of the Son in creation. And he says that all creation is made through him and for him. Meaning, we are made in the image specifically of Jesus. Meaning, if you want to understand yourself, if you want to find peace and fulfillment, if you want to find truth, if you want to find morality and righteousness, if you want to know how you were created and how you work as a human being, if you want to understand the inner workings and dynamics of your heart and soul, then you look to Jesus. Jesus is the model of your fulfilled humanity. And if you look anywhere other than Jesus for a model of your fulfilled humanity, you are going to be sad. and you are going to be depressed and you are going to be unfulfilled. You might say, well, if I followed Jesus, I'd have to do this thing, or I'd have to give up this aspect of my life. And that thing is making me happy, so I'm not going to follow Jesus 100%. I'll give him 90% or 85%. But this I'm keeping. I promise you, the thing that you keep is going to be the source of your greatest unhappiness. It's the thing that you think is making you happy. It's the thing that you think is fulfilling your life. But it's the one thing that you're not getting in line with the way in which you were made. I love and deeply value driving my manual transmission car, but I also am very familiar with the sound of grinding gears. And I can tell you that 5%, that 10% that you're holding back from Jesus, your gears are going to grind. It's going to be terrible because you are made in a certain way and you are made to work in a certain way. And the image of that way is Jesus. And whatever you hold back from Jesus is just going to gunk up the works. Just going to make your life miserable. So as Christians, we believe that the highest truth we can find is in Jesus. That the most righteousness is in Jesus. That our salvation is in Jesus. And yet, the rest of the world looks upon Christianity with disdain. It's very much what's happening in our gospel. Of course, whatever Jesus goes through, we should expect as Christians to go through. So the leaders of the people, the soldiers, even one of the thieves on the cross, they look at Jesus and they say, well, this man is powerless. He claimed to be the Messiah. He claimed to be the Christ. He claimed to be the Savior of Israel. And yet he is a common criminal on a cross, dying with the rest of us. And so they revile him. That's what people do to Christianity. They look at Christianity and they say, Christianity is impotent. It has no power to do anything. They will make accusations like, Christians are no better than anybody else. That Christianity has done nothing for the world. They'll name all of the historical atrocities and they'll say, well, Christians were in power when the Holocaust happened, or Christians were in power when we had slavery, or Christians were empowered when this, that, or the other thing. As a way to say, therefore, Christianity either has nothing to offer or is a force of evil in the world. They revile us because they think we have no power. Just as reviled Jesus. They reviled Jesus because they thought that he had no power. Why is that true? Well, I would argue it is because we have been pretty bad Christians. That all of the things that we're talking about, all those things that are thrown in our face, it's because we didn't give ourselves fully and completely to the Lord. That we've been living a Christianity generationally that has reservations. Great, I'll claim to be a Christian. I'll use the name Christian. But if there's a conflict with Mass on Sunday, I'm going to choose the conflict. I'd much rather be in a competitive sports league than I would be at Mass on Sunday. If there's something that I'm doing, great, I'll just do that instead. Or we might say, yeah, I'm going to give myself to Jesus, but I've got this intellectual reservation. I think I'm smarter than the church with this, that, or the other issue. Okay, well, then fine. But when people look at you, they're seeing you. They're not seeing Christianity. Because if you make yourself the standard of Christian living, if you say, okay, I am better than Christ or the church or the Christian way of life, when people look at you, they're seeing you. Or if you say, Christ owns everything, then you begin to fade away. You die to self, and only Christ remains. And when people look at you, they see Christ. We have to go all in on Christianity if we have any hope of evangelizing this world. In our first reading, I'll point something out, we have the Israelites coming to David. The Israelites rejected David. David was Saul's son-in-law. He was the head of the army. Saul gets jealous, begins to try to kill David, and Israel splits. David becomes king in the south. Saul is king in the north. Saul dies. His son becomes king in the north. His son is assassinated, and the northern tribes are left with no king. So they come to David, whom they have persecuted. They come to David, whom they have rejected. And they say, here we are, your bone and your flesh. Our ears should perk up at that. Bone and flesh. This is similar to what Adam says to Eve in Genesis chapter 2. This one at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. The commentary I read on this reading said, this is covenantal language. They believe the Jews would have used this every time they made a covenant. Bone and flesh. Bone and flesh is your entirety. It's everything you are. There's nothing in you that is not bone or flesh. And so what the Israelites are saying to David, whom they have rejected, and they say, look, we want you as a king, but it's total, it's absolute. We belong fully and completely to you. Just as when Adam spoke to Eve, it was, this one finally is one that is completely mine and I am completely hers. It's a covenant. It's total. Israel comes to David and says, I know we rejected you before, but now we want to fully belong to you. We want to be the same, bone and flesh. Can we say that to Christ? Can we say that about God? God, I'm coming to you, and it's not like, okay, you can have part of me, you can have my heart, but not my head. We're saying, I want to be bone and flesh. Everything I am belongs to God. I have no reservations. I'm holding nothing back. Everything belongs to Jesus. Everything belongs to Him. If we do that, we might finally be able to live out publicly an authentic Christianity. We might, in fact, show that our lives are transformed by Christ. That Christianity is not simply a label, but it is a life. Not just a lifestyle, but a life. Everything that I have and am is marked by Christ. People are going to recognize that if we sacrifice parts of ourselves, if we let Christianity change us, if they see that we've had to change our lifestyle or had to change our opinions because Christ has a total claim on us. If we live lives that look like everybody else's, why would they think that Christianity has any power? If we live lives that look different than the rest of the world and the rest of society, well, then maybe Christ has in fact transformed us. I'll give you a final challenge. It's a challenge that I offer pretty much every Christ the King. And welcome to Partners in the Gospel. You have me this year. And it's this. The thing that I see pull most people away from Christ, most powerfully, most of the time, is politics. We have begun to look to politics for our salvation because we have stopped believing that Christianity can transform the world. And so we use political power to try to transform the world. We put more faith in the president or the governor or the courts than we do in living a Christian life. Here's how you know if politics is a threat to your faith. Make a list of all of your political positions. And then make 2 more lists. Make a list of all of the political positions of your favorite political party, and make a list of all of the political positions of the U.S. bishops. Most American Catholics, and even most American Catholics in the pews today, are going to look at those lists and see that their personal list matches far closer with the political party than it does with their bishops. And a lot of people will justify and be like, well, the bishops are, too conservative on this issue or too liberal on this issue. Okay, but why do we say that? Why do we make that excuse? Because we're trying to justify our political party. We're trying to justify the platform that we've bought into. We're trying to justify our favorite politician. It's not to say the bishops can't be wrong. They make a lot of prudential decisions, which is to say they might say, we have an obligation to serve the poor. That's dogma. We do have an obligation to serve the poor. But then they might make a decision about, okay, which government programs are necessary to serve the poor. That's prudential. You can debate that. Different Catholics can disagree. But imagine what it would look like if we began with the position of our bishops and tried very hard to get on their page and challenge our political parties to try to listen to the bishops rather than doing the opposite and saying, I'm beginning with my political party and I'm going to push the bishops to get in line with my favorite politician. It would look very different. Christianity would have political power because our lives would have been transformed by Jesus first. I'll leave it there. Where do we go from here? If we want to evangelize the world, we have to convince them that Christianity matters. And that means we have to let Jesus reign as king in our hearts. Kings order, and good kings order well. So if Jesus is our king, if he has the most power over our heart and over our mind, then he will order our lives well. He will help us find peace and fulfillment and joy and love. And we will live lives that look like him. Don't forget, he reigns from the cross. It's going to require sacrifice to let Jesus reign in our hearts. But if we do so, our lives will be well ordered. And then if our lives are well ordered, our families will be well ordered. Because our families will be given over to the reign of Jesus Christ the King. And if our families are well ordered, our churches will be well ordered. And if our churches are well ordered, our communities will be well ordered. And if our communities are well ordered, then our state will be well ordered, and our country will be well ordered, and our world will be well ordered. But it starts with letting Jesus be the King of our lives. Nobody else but Jesus. Only Christ the King. If we do so, if we allow Jesus to reign, then finally the world might see what it looks like when Christianity is well lived and when Jesus is the King.